Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Esezanambasi, a medical doctor by training. And for the people who are logging on perhaps for the first time, I just want to give you a bit of background to these sessions. I call it Applied Neolife, and the other name for it is Team Training Tuesday. I started these sessions basically to give people some background information to what we do in this family called Neolife. A lot of people think it is simply about selling products. Well, there is much, much more than just selling products. I believe that once you understand why you have a certain product or series or set of products, you would be in a better position to use them yourself and thereafter to recommend them. So last week we started a series, the series called From Inside Out, and today I've reversed it, From Outside In. And so I have a question for you. What comes to mind when you think about the environment? A lot of people wonder, oh, what does all that mean? Some people think immediately about the amount of toxins that we are exposed to in the environment. So we will look at effects of exposures, not necessarily to everything on the screen, but the effects of exposure to radiation, toxic metals, microorganisms, and there are so many things that are coming at us that it is wise to know perhaps what you can do about it. So this little picture is a picture of the things that must be going on in your body. This is a cartoon picture of the mitochondria. Now, you will hear a lot about mitochondria as we carry on with our trainings, but suffice it to know at this stage that those are very, very important because they are the powerhouses within our cells. They are the ones that produce the energy of each and every cell in our body. And so, with them being exposed all the time, perhaps it is time to think really seriously about your responsibility. So the question is, where are environmental toxins found? And they are with us in our everyday lives: pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, fumigants, fertilizers, and then things seep into the soil and they get into the water and are emitted into the air. And then we buy a lot of food these days, modern food. So a lot of it has additives and preservatives and artificial colorings. It's designed to make the food look appealing, but those could be classified as not very nice to the body or toxins. And then other things like ripening agents, waxes on fruits, okay? And then our personal care and our household cleaning, depending on where you get them from, might also be sources of environmental toxins. And then habits that people might have acquired as they grow up: cigarettes and pipes and cigar smoking. So as we think about all these things, a lot of people manifest allergies. So I just want to contrast or to compare and contrast allergies with environmental toxicity. The symptoms are similar. However, the mechanisms might be different. Allergies, that is the overreaction of the immune system to a substance known as an allergen. Whereas environmental toxicity, this is in fact, not an immune system reaction as an allergy is, but it is direct poisoning of cells. And the ultimate result of that is that cells will no longer function normally. So the two are on a spectrum, okay? Initially, if there is something that is causing toxicity, the immune system will respond and overreact as it would to an allergen. But then if it persists and it is toxic, then there's a difference. So further comparison, allergic reactions generally subside when the offending allergen ceases. When the thing causing the reaction is taken away, the reaction generally subsides. But environmental toxicity can persist long afterwards, depending on the type of the toxin and the extent of the damage. So that's, again, comparing and contrasting. So I just want to remind us that in his wisdom, our Creator gave us the immune system, which is designed to protect against infectious agents, allergens, and toxins. And the immune system is a huge system. I won't go into it today, but when there is a response, there is increased production of white blood cells and antibodies. And all these are very, very important to keep the system alert. Also part of the immune system, we have to remember the role of getting rid of the toxins. So the kidneys and the liver are very, very important. Right. I want to give some examples of environmental toxins to be aware of. And I've just put them on this little chart. Some of them are metallic, others might be microorganisms, such as a bacteria. But yes, so I'll talk a little bit about a few of them. And let's start with arsenic. Arsenic is found in pesticides. It can be found in certain brands of laundry compounds. It has been added to table salt, and it can be also found in higher quantities in seafood. A feature of arsenic, it is deposited in hair, in the skin, and in nails. Chronic exposure may lead to persistent headaches, confusion, drowsiness. Something to note about arsenic is that rice has higher levels than other grain, and it seems to just have the propensity to soak up arsenic from wherever it is growing. And it can be made worse if the water also has a high level of arsenic. And I found this quite interesting because just last week I spoke about washing my rice to remove the things that are sprayed on it. So this could be something that might cause us to relook at the frequency with which we eat rice, okay? But anyway, that's a choice that we need to make. Now, we need to be particularly mindful of our children. They are smaller, and so they are more easily affected by toxins. Then lead. Let's talk a little bit about lead. Lead is, okay. Let's see if I can move something. It is a highly toxic and cumulative, and it is retained in the body over a long time. If not excreted by the digestive system, it is absorbed directly from the bloodstream into tissues, and it is stored particularly in bone. That is lead. And it can then re-enter the circulation in times of stress, such as during a severe illness or an illness, during pregnancy, during prolonged immobilization, When if you have a relative who is admitted and is in bed for a long time, the lead that has been accumulating in the bone and other tissues can then re-enter circulation, and they might appear sicker. Instead of getting better, they seem to be getting sick. That could be a function of the lead that is being released from tissues. And then lead has no real health benefit. It is a known metabolic poison. Now, one might wonder, what are we supposed to do about all this? Well, that's the reason for this discussion, isn't it? Because there are some things that we need to know whether we can do something about them directly, or whether we just need to know and take greater responsibility. So here is a very good reason to use supplements. The body uses the same mechanisms to absorb calcium as it would lead. So if there is a deficiency of calcium, then environmental lead poisoning can happen, okay? Because the environmental lead is absorbed much more because there's a deficiency of calcium. Obviously, one has to use a good quality calcium with a high bioavailability, and also one that is sourced from the right sources, food specifically. So please, again, let us be very mindful about our children, because they are smaller and they absorb more. So sources of lead are common things that we use commonly, such as lead-based paints, ceramic glazes for the artists, lead crystal and glassware, petroleum. Yeah, these days we have unleaded fuel, but I'm sure still some cars which are older and use fuels with lead in them. And then in the old days, before they turned to copper and other materials, the more modern materials, water pipes were of lead. And then other materials, alloys and things that are added, for example, to food packaging and cans. Okay, now let's talk about mercury. Mercury is highly toxic. It also accumulates. It is found in soil, water, and food supplies. And mercury is used to treat grain and seeds, yeah, to protect them from like fungus. It is found in everyday products such as cosmetics, printer ink, fabric softeners, if you buy them from different sources, even in some medications, some paints, in plastics, in polishes, in preservatives. It's all over the place. These days, dentistry is using less and less lead, but yes, that was a very common source, and it may remain a common source today. Symptoms of mercury poisoning can mimic a lot of disease processes, especially diseases that affect the nervous system. They can also mimic the reproductive system disorders, such as menstrual disorders and miscarriages. So we need to think broadly, and that's why I do these sessions. It gets us to think. Now, mercury crosses into the brain, and it is retained in the central nervous system. That is something to be so aware of. It also binds with immune cells, and it can interfere with function, and it might be implicated in autoimmune disorders. So we need to be so aware. Signs that alert to possible mercury toxicity. Now, you know, it's very interesting because we see this frequently. Behavioral changes, depression, irritability, hyperactivity, allergies, asthma. Then people who complain about a metallic taste in the mouth. Okay, all those may be pointing, among other things, to possible mercury toxicity. And then another thing that we need to be aware of is food poisoning. Sounds crazy, but yes, it is one of those environmental toxins. A common one is salmonellosis. It's a bacteria that is found in the intestinal tract of livestock, and it can even become very resistant to antibiotics, because antibiotics are given quite widely to livestock and resistance can develop. However, it is also the normal flora, and other bacteria can be normal flora. In other words, they normally reside in the intestines, but the difference is that they can overgrow, especially in situations of low immunity, and that can lead to disease. Then the other feature about them is that they're easily transmitted. I know for a fact, like now, there are pockets of outbreaks of cholera in various places. Yes, that can happen. And the challenge is that these food poisonings and other bacteria that break out can cause chronic health challenges, such as reactive arthritis. Have you thought of that? Some people might have all these joint pains, basically because they have been exposed for a long time to bacteria from food poisoning. So we call that reactive arthritis, and also chronic immunodeficiency. You can imagine if the immune system is under constant stress, it will be worn out eventually. So now, how does the body respond? Hey, that's a good question. The body will respond with the symptoms that we see commonly, and we wonder, oh my gosh, what is this? Watery eyes, nausea, diarrhea, ringing in the ears, stuffiness. I've often heard people talk about the fact that they have sinus, okay? Asthma, bronchitis, arthritis, fatigue, headaches, eczema, depression, chronic flu-like symptoms. And eventually, one just goes to the shop and buys a little bit of medication over the counter and says, I've managed this, when in fact they have just suppressed what the body is trying to say. So please keep the very real possibility of environmental toxicity top of mind. Okay, and we are trained in this opportunity, in this family, to ask questions, ask the right questions to get answers that will lead to the right advice, so that you can offer real results, because that's what we want to do always, to offer results. So now let us connect some dots. Environmental exposures affect us and cause all sorts of illnesses. And the big dot here is that we are responsible to ensure that we remain healthy and strong. It is our responsibility. And I will stress that a lot. I've put this picture in here just to remind us very quickly that visceral fat accumulation, all these things that we are seeing, all the people that we are seeing who are accumulating fat, just remember that it is a sign of accumulation of toxins in the body. Okay, I won't dwell on that today, but it is also a sign of chronic ongoing inflammation. And inflammation and oxidative damage are the things that will lead to disease ultimately. So now let us look forward. I love the fact that we can get the bad news behind us and look forward to making the world a healthier and happier place. When, first and foremost, everyone's home is healthy. And I start with the home on purpose, because that is something that you can decide. You can decide to change your buying habits, right? And that's what we in this family love to do. We love to show you how you can change your buying habits. So welcome to a new life with Neolife, the family that is on a mission to make the world healthier and happier. So I love to start with what you can control in your own personal environment. You know, we've talked a lot about what is happening out there, but if among the things that we buy in the shops are all those metals that I've mentioned, perhaps, and other toxins, perhaps it's time for you to rethink your brands of household cleaners. So why Neolife indeed? Well, Neolife is powerful. It is highly economical and it is earth-friendly. It is non-toxic. We know that for a fact. So that even if we clean our homes with them and we have little children, our children are safe. We don't want an accumulation of all those things that I talked about in our little ones, let alone ourselves. So when in your life, you can get them, you can change your buying habits, you will save a lot of money, a lot, and that money you can then invest in your health to make yourself stronger. That is your responsibility. So your life does not get better by chance. Your life does not get better by chance. It will get better by change if you change. And always remember that fresh air, if you can find it. So when we go out into the village where there's less traffic and no industries, it is good for us. It is part of our well-being to get out there, to exercise, to make sure that the water that you're drinking is of a good quality. I've been filtering my water for a long time and I'm so glad. So just the other day, we changed the filter. We've now got a different one. It has two domes. So one takes out particulate material and the other one actually takes out a lot of those arsenic and mercuries and other things in two domes. At least I'm doing something, I feel. Now, why I'm telling you this is that it might be a good investment if you can. Otherwise, there are other ways of making sure that you drink better quality water and take responsibility. Also, just I might as well mention here, avoid plastic bottles, okay? Because the plastics actually seep into the water and may be quite damaging. Then all these other things that we need to do, healthy food, rest, and sunshine is important. So the first thing when we are thinking from outside in is that food really matters. That is true. We need to be aware that the food that we're putting from the outside into our bodies really matters, and a plant-based diet may be protective as well. So we have learned a lot from our amazing scientific advisory board. This is a picture just to recognize and to always give tribute to them for the quality of products that we have and the amount of education that we are exposed to, such as for the visitors, for the guests. Did you know that we are made out of millions, in fact, trillions of cells? We are made up of over 70 trillion cells, and each cell needs to be taken care of. So we need to look after ourselves at that level. And then on the right is the picture of a mitochondrion. Each cell might have thousands of mitochondria, depending on the function of that cell. For example, a heart cell, a heart muscle cell has thousands and thousands of mitochondria. Why? Because the heart has to pump and pump and pump from the time you are conceived all the way till the end of life. So disease, I want you to look at it from a different perspective, that it is actually mitochondrial failure. And a lot of the things that we have already discussed are toxic to the mitochondria. So where do we begin? Let us see what Neolife has to teach us. And this is the wellness triangle. And we need to do all these things. And this is for the benefit of those who are new here. But, you know, if we are eating correctly, we should be eating in these sorts of ratios. Unfortunately, real life happens. And the typical lifestyle triangle is something like that, where we hardly do any physical activity. And then we eat way too much fat and sugar. And the fat is also the wrong types of oils. They are good fats, but if we're getting the wrong ones, then our cells are at a disadvantage straight away. So our energy levels, remember, mitochondria create energy, will quickly dwindle and we will move quite rapidly into the tired and sick zone. And we end up losing a lot of life and think that it is a disease process when in fact it is the failure of the cells. And instead of correcting that, everybody doesn't know this, but we tend to treat the symptoms and not the disease. So what we are telling ourselves in this family is that to get healthy cells, we need to go back to the basics. And remember that our food has been so processed that we are no longer getting whole grain oils, and the cells at that level become unhealthy. And what we need to do now is do the first thing proactively, and that is to feed ourselves. I've talked about removing as much of the toxins as possible. Also, feed yourself so that you can enhance your energy and improve nutrient utilization so that the cells have the tools to create what it takes to protect the body from the toxins. So we are all wanting a healthier family, a healthier future, and let's start with the children and ask ourselves, why Neolife? Well, Neolife gives children who are otherwise very difficult to feed because they might be picky or they might have their taste buds captured by all the sweets and the preservatives and all those additives. We need to start then by giving them the basics in nutrition, including Treonine, which is found in their Vita squares. Okay, so let's start with the children. Don't forget them. They will need to get the 22 amino acids because they are growing. And then we have the basics, and I'll just point out again that Treonine is right there. But to help the body with inflammation, you have omega-3. To help the body with protection, you have antioxidants in this amazing product called carotenoid complex. And now that we're talking about toxicity, this becomes even more important. Not to wait until you get the toxins and then start until you get the symptoms of the toxicity, but to make it an investment into your health. And then, of course, vitamins and minerals. So why Neolife? Well, we have amazing products that have no high fructose corn syrup or preservatives or gluten, and they don't give us things like GMO, genetically modified organisms. They are free of all that. So they are not artificial. They are made out of food, human food, and they have been made in such a way that they serve us. And then we've talked about clearing your environment, please. As you can see, just a few things will clean your environment. Why Neolife again? You need to be sure that what you're using on your skin is not going to poison you. You've already heard that a lot of cosmetics have things like mercury in them. So this is a good reason for Neolife. Just change your brands, okay? Change your brands. And when you do that, turn to the person who has invited you here if you're a guest, because there is an opportunity for you not only to help yourself with your health, not only to help the environment become less toxic, but you can also run your own business and make money. And I have put this particular product here called carotenoid complex because, yes, you can change people's lives by showing them that they will empower themselves and others as well and get paid for it. So why Neolife? This is, I think for me, very significant. Just to remind you that myself as a medical doctor for a very, very long time, I have for a long time known that health does not always come from medicine. Most of the time, it comes from peace of mind, peace in heart, peace of soul. It comes from laughter and love. And that is, for me, the big, big answer to why Neolife. So coming up in our series is why it is important to detox regularly. We'll do that next week. I want to see how to present it to you in the best way possible. Perhaps we can open up for discussion as well. And always remember that in this family, we are on a mission to make the world healthier and happier, and it will start with each and every one of us. Thank you, and I hope that this has been useful. Let us invite you to come along and discuss if that's what you want to do. So I'll stop.